Hey, how many of you like cats? Okay. Here's cats racing at the Indianapolis 500.
Hey, welcome. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to On the
Hello.
Town with Tanya. Hi, how are you, Ed?
Oh,
Um, so I'm going to intro you first. Hi guys. I just had to show that
sure.
little clip first. So
Yep.
Ed Smith is a unique comic who
Yep.
serves as an observant and silly string of brain twisty characters and bits, according to his words. He has been
Oh,
a
thanks.
regular. He has been a regular at Finger Lakes Comedy Festival since 2016, and he produces two feature shows: Geek Comedy Hour, an hour-long comedy show, and the Bronco Brad Dang Tootin' Good Time Show, featuring Bronco
Yep.
Brad and a host of other characters and live guests. Please welcome comedian impressionist Ed Smyth. Hey.
Hello there.
Oh, wait, I
Hello,
said the
nice to
name
meet you.
wrong. I think I said your name wrong. Say your last name.
If I know you're talking to me, that's fine.
That's a start. That's a
Call me
help.
Ted, call me Ed,
Uh-oh.
as
My
long as
dog
you
was
call
not.
me to dinner.
As long as I, as long as I call you.
Ye-
So
Yeah,
you would.
what? What? The dog's calling me.
The dog's calling you right now. He's really calling you. Hey, psst. That's because he hears another dog barking. So yes, Duke
Um,
is in the building, people. In case you haven't noticed, that's Duke, my dog. So you've been doing comedy how long now?
well, it's been 7 years this round, sure.
Okay, okay. What inspired you to get into comedy?
Well, I don't think it's an inspiration. Rather, it's just it's a calling. You know how some people can, when they're a kid, they can throw a rock real
Hmm.
fast and hit a
Hmm.
tree, and
Hmm.
they've realized, they could probably be a baseball pitcher. It's the same idea doing comedy.
Same thing. How
Yeah,
did you?
I know that I can do something funny and make it work.
Right, right. What?
Yeah.
How did you decide? How do you decide, like when you're doing impersonations, like which celebrities or which voices to do, public figures? How do you decide?
Oh, well, the first rule is I have to make myself laugh. If I
Okay,
can crack myself up, I know that I've got something good.
okay.
Although there are times that I'll write something, I'll try it out on open mic, and it hits well, and I think this is pretty mundane, but it seems to be likable, so
Mhm.
we'll keep it.
So let's go for it. I hear you.
Yeah,
Can
exactly. For example, like the chimpanzee doing vowels.
okay.
To me,
Wait, can you give me a little
it's
sample of that?
oh yeah,
There's no cursing,
chimpanzee
right?
doing,
There's no cursing.
practicing his vowels. Yeah. Hey, 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 he, hey, 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 ho, 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 pew, 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 pew. And sometimes why?
That's so funny. The things that some of us think about.
Yeah.
Can
So
you?
to me, when I sketched it out, I said to myself, this is mildly amusing, but people crack up. So it's how it is, Tanya. It's selling it so that people follow what you're doing.
Right,
The two minds are connecting. Yeah,
right, right.
because
Wow.
comedy is as much as then people following with whatever you're doing. I Someone told me a George Carlin line a long time ago that I take to heart, which is um, comedian is like a good taxi driver. People will get inside and ride with you as long as they know where you're going.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's juicy. I love that. Wow.
Yeah.
Can can
Yeah.
you?
Conversely, if people are skittish about what you're doing, it
Right.
doesn't matter how talented you might think you are or how clever your lines are. People are going to hold back.
Yeah, because they
Remember,
know.
dogs and audiences can smell fear.
Ah, haha, very good, very good. Ha. And audiences for sure.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a bombing moment? Like, yeah. Have you
Well,
ever
we
had?
all do. There can't be a person alive that hasn't. I don't think of it as bombing anymore. As rather as you push your boundaries and things don't hit. But if
Right.
you've got a clean, clear theme or personality going that even when it's falling flat, you just either move on, or if you want, you could even milk it. I mean, you've done it. You must have done it yourself, or been at
Oh yeah.
shows where, yeah,
Oh yeah.
someone clearly isn't hitting, so they just make fun of it, and the audience is actually laughing at
Mhm.
them playing up that it's not working.
Right.
You know, and the classic example is Johnny Carson. His monologue night after night was how bad his jokes were, and the worse they were, and that he would just like fumble and pull his tie and make awkward pauses, and people loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he
Yeah,
owned it. He owned it. And if you own it,
exactly. Yeah. That was the theme. That was the theme. There was corny puns or bad jokes, and you would
yes.
wait for the stumbling part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one comedian, even one late night show guy, is it Dave Letterman that throws the cards to the side, or something like that? Somebody throws the cards to the side.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
he's very
Yeah.
matter of factly, but he
Yeah.
owns
So
it.
it's always in being command of your moment.
Yes,
And
exactly.
stringing those moments together. As long as you're command, it goes back to that anecdote. As long as the audience knows where you're going, they'll
Mhm.
follow along. They may not crack up and they not be spitting up blood laughing at you, but they'll follow along.
Right. All right. Don't know if I
You
want
know,
him to spit blood.
well, I'm exaggerating. All right,
That's
snorting beer is a good
breaking a
analogy.
rib.
Yeah.
That's I'm gonna be held liable. We don't want that one. Um, so can you name like a memorable experience or like a challenge that you faced when you were performing an impersonation? Like, have you ever broken character or something?
A challenge? Oh, no, just like with Ted the Impressionist now, is it's fun because the more awkward the silence, the better it comes through. Because then
Uh,
people realize that awkwardness is part of what makes it funny.
right,
And
right,
it ties back to that Johnny Carson idea that, yeah, but it's not really laughing at the bit as much as just laughing at the absurdity of what's going on.
right. Yeah, no, I've
Yeah.
seen it.
So no particular moments. I think like any professional, well, truly like any professional athlete is as true as like doing stand up is you're managing control, you're minimizing the super highs, super low,
Right,
so that when things happen, it's more of a steady trajectory.
right,
The greatest hitters, can still connect with the ball. They just might be chopping it to to the shortstop, but they're still connecting versus
right,
striking out.
right.
So that's
Yeah,
all it is. That is just managing so you're not doing really dumb things that just don't make any sense. Yeah,
absolutely,
some people
absolutely.
do that. They like to live life on the edge. Or people like to do crowd work. There's an
Oh yeah.
example where you know you, their act is really how much they're managing whatever people say to them,
Mhm.
rather than delivering the classic setup punchline.
Right,
I
right.
went to a Paula Poundstone show about
Mhm,
4 years ago,
mhm,
and she didn't have an opener. She just
mhm,
came out on her own introduction, and she
mhm.
did 90 minutes of just crowd work.
Wow. And she
Yeah,
saved a lot of money.
huh?
And she saved a lot of money by just having herself.
Um, well, I suppose there's a
So,
truth in that, but the fact is that she's so confident in what she does, she
mhm.
doesn't need an opener.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Makes sense. I never could understand that anyway. It's like I'm paying $90 for a ticket. I just want to see you. But it's good.
Well, that's kind of paying your dues if you're working as an opener, but even openers really have to be strong. They've got to have a really strong act just to do their whatever 15 minutes.
Right,
Get the crowd at least paying attention and then leave.
right,
Yeah, because to your point is you're not there for the opener.
right. It's true.
Yeah.
Very true.
But
Uh,
a good opener though, that relaxes the audience and lets them know, I understand you're not paying to see me. I'm
right.
just here to get things flowing, get you guys connected. And when you
Mhm,
guys are to that point, if you're halfway there,
mhm.
then that's the opener's success. If
That's
you're
true.
getting big belly laughs, you shouldn't be the opener, or you wouldn't be the opener, I should say.
Right. I guess
Yeah.
that's true. Your job is to segue to the next to the big cheese. Um,
Right, right. It's just like a good host. It's the same way. You're not there to see the host, but if a host keeps things lively and moving and clicking
right,
along, that's
right,
great. You appreciate the value of what they're doing. They're embracing their role and they're
right.
doing it well.
That's a good way to say it. Their role.
Yeah.
How do you develop your impersonation skills and like stay true to each character that you do? You know, like do you
Um,
practice for months or weeks or takes a while?
uh,
You know.
uh, I think of it like jumping out of a plane with only one parachute and no spare.
Oh
You're
wow.
committing yourself, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you
Right.
crash. But that's what open mics are for. So
Right.
you can do that kind of experiment, and if it doesn't work, fine. I think I've done probably, I'll say like an even half dozen of things that just didn't really, they didn't really pan out, or they just didn't really gel the way I was thinking. There was one time I tried, I think twice, I did one chord Jake. The
One
idea
call.
was I was at an open mic, and there was a musician. He seemed like he only could play one chord, regardless of what the song was. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, let's just expand that a little further. Is a guy playing a guitar with one chord, boom, 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 and he starts singing all type of genres of songs. He does disco. I'm alive, staying alive, bong, 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 and then he does heavy metal. Keep one eye open and the other one closed. Boom, boom. It's a funny concept, but it just didn't really translate.
Now, when you were a kid, were you like this? Where you were just always like, I think I'm gonna be somebody else for 5 minutes, and then we just do another character? Because I was, well,
Um, no,
yeah,
I'm sure, Tanya, it's just like you're saying with your own experiences. You see things that are funny that strike you as funny, and you try it yourself. You do things that you try to crack up your friends, or you do something, in a public performance. That's all. Same idea, that you just see funny things and you realize you not only do you like seeing it, but doing it yourself.
right, right. It
Yeah,
makes. What's the
yeah.
first thing
And
you ever
then of
watched?
course there's a matter of degrees if you can actually do it yourself.
Right, that's a whole nother.
I could say, oh, I'd really like to try to throw a football, but I think I'm a long ways from being a professional quarterback.
Right, right, right. But what's
Right.
the first thing you ever saw that made you actually want to do impersonations?
Oh, I don't think there's any one particular thing, but back when I was a kid, there'd be things that would really crack me up. I used to enjoy watching when PBS first started broadcasting Monty Python in the
Oh yes,
late
yes,
70s,
yes.
and SNL in the late 70s, and I loved Doonesbury
Right.
cartoon when I was a kid, and
Yes.
Mad Magazine. Mad
Yes.
Magazine, I suppose, is much of a subtle influence more than I even consider, but it was that winking satire and making
Mm,
fun of things is so funny.
mm.
So,
Wow.
that's one of those things where you just turn it around and see if you can try it yourself.
Right. Well, if you
Yeah.
want to give a new comedian impersonist, I can't impressionist advice, would you say how do you prepare and introduce a new impersonation for your act?
Well,
Like,
Ted the Impressionist is the idea behind Ted is that he enjoys doing impressions, but it isn't necessarily good or really talented impressions. And so
he admits it. This is good. This
and
is good.
and so what makes it fun is then it doesn't have to be good. In fact, what I think is that sometimes with Ted, if it's done too well,
Hmm.
it just kind of loses the edge, because then it's almost like the audience is perceiving, oh, that is, he's really trying to do that thing. The better notion is that Ted just does these little things that he finds interesting, and then he just pauses, dumb deadpan, and waits for the audience to react. So that's me. That's the humor part, is letting that silly awkwardness just linger in the air.
So when it
It's
goes
tough to manage.
right,
Mhm.
if it goes left, that's what you do is just accept it, own it, and then go transition to the
Oh
next.
yeah, yeah. So the audience has to perceive that it's being absurd,
Right,
because if they think it's real, it won't sell. You
right,
can go to any
right,
open mic and see mediocre comedy.
right. That's very
You know,
true.
actually, you know what, Tanya? Of all the things, I think uh, that's what has cracked me up when I've gone to open mic
Mm,
every once in a great while, and you see someone who's really sincere what they're
mm,
doing, but they really don't have any clue how to do comedy. And that's what
mm,
makes it funny, because it's both sincere and it's innocent, and you're laughing at the whole scenario that they're just delivering. Oh, let's say someone's doing dad jokes and he thinks he's being really funny, and he's just kind of looking around, waiting for the audience to react, and you and you're laughing not at his joke, you're laughing at just the whole absurdity that he thinks it's hilarious, and
huh,
he's just waiting for you to think it's hilarious.
huh. That might have been me at one point. I mean, I think we all, when we first come in the room, very few people I've seen get up the first time and actually kill it out the box. Now
Oh
today,
yeah.
probably so, because there's so many YouTube and people cheat. I've seen people using AI to make jokes. I was like, how do you make jokes out of AI? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, it's just a tool that doesn't really.
Yeah, but it's
The
becoming a
challenge,
thing.
the real challenge is the fact that doing absurdist comedy is tough to do, because 95% plus of any all stand up is observational.
Right,
Even if
absolutely.
someone does kind of an absurd observational, it's still observational humor,
Right.
and you think about, um, I think about it that, like, 45 years ago or so, plus minus, there was no observational comedians. You had classic comedians like Rodney Dangerfield and Phyllis
Yeah. How many
Diller,
years ago you
a
said?
whole
How many
host of
years?
others. Well, like roughly 45 years ago. It was David Brenner in the early 70s that
Okay.
had then a really polished style that was observational humor.
Well,
Where you,
Mom's Mabley, wasn't she like way back? Well, maybe not. Well,
kind
maybe
of,
not
but
that.
it was more classic shtick, like with Phyllis Diller,
Right.
that
And Jerry Lewis
that it
and
was
them. Yeah.
delivered as if you and I would say observational, but it was more of a made up stuff.
Okay.
Because the real Phyllis Diller did none of those things really happen to her. She would just
Right.
make this stuff up
I know she was
and then
fabulous.
just
So what
deliver it
about
like observational. Yeah,
what's his,
like,
Charlie
but
Chaplin?
what did she say? Her husband Fang. Yeah, Fang. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then she do the classic set up punchline.
Right. And what about Charlie
Yeah.
Chaplin? I'm trying to think back. Charlie Chaplin,
Well,
although it
that's
was
different.
silent.
That's film rather than stand up.
Yeah. Okay.
But
So
to your
wait.
point, it's a different kind of comedy.
Yeah, it is. It is a different beast. So
Yeah.
you're
I
right.
don't know
I'm
where
just
you're
trying to
going
think
with
in
that,
my
but
head.
I'm following
Yeah.
your lead.
You're following me right to the river. Right to the river. Hope you got a good tank with you. So how are you able to balance like creating original comedic content and performing impersonations? Like that takes a lot of balancing to do.
I'm sorry,
Because I
balance
used
for
to
what?
do I used to do impersonations, but
Oh,
when you do the comedy, it's like, well, I can add it in, but it's like a specific way I have to go about doing it.
well, I see what you're saying. With
Yeah,
Ted
it's just
the
a balance.
Impressionist,
Yeah.
the selling point, if you will, is that Ted thinks he's doing clever impressions, but for the audience as the recipient of it, it's dumb. But the humor derives out of the tension and then the release created because Ted thinks it's clever and he's just waiting for you to applaud.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. Is Ted your most popular, well-received character? What do you
Well,
think?
I
Which one is?
enjoy Oog, son of Og, 30,000 BC, but it's tough to do because
Oh,
number one is it's a lot of stuff that has to be dressed up, and
okay,
secondly is that it, it just doesn't register as cleanly,
okay,
that people can't quite grasp what it is that Oog is supposed to be.
okay,
So, if people who enjoy absurd humor, they love it. But if it's more of like a mainstream crowd, it's a hit or miss.
okay.
With
Uh,
Ted, with Ted, it's a delicate balancing act because If you try to milk it too much, then things start slowing down. So it's
Okay.
just enough that Ted's delivering whatever he's doing
Okay.
and then just letting that tension linger. And so
Hmm.
that's the delicate balancing act, is how much tension can you keep going by not saying or doing anything while the audience is cracking up before moving on to the next item. And then
Right.
obviously then the real trick is then building that steady crescendo. Because if people are laughing, they're releasing endorphins. Plus, they're mildly, if you will, the act of laughter is mildly hyperventilating because
Right.
you're not taking in as much oxygen as your normal breathing. You're going So that's the idea, is that real laughter then is kind of steamrolls into bigger laughter if you can sustain it, and that's pretty tough to do.
Yeah. That is very. It's very
I mean, even the
takes a lot.
greatest people, you can't necessarily always sustain it.
Yeah.
And
It takes a
I've read about Janine Garofalo, who does regular work down in the city, and one of the compliments about her is that she's fearless. She'll just do any brand new stuff cold without any fear.
lot. Right.
And she says that's what she likes to do, and that's her
Right.
thing. So I give her a lot of credit because that's tough.
Yeah.
I
I have a
even
few.
remember reading interviews with Richard Pryor, who used to say that he always felt that if he did open mics or showcases, he might get 20% laughs out of a set, but
Mm,
he was always experimenting to see what would work.
right.
So you have to give people like that lots of credit, that they're willing to really put it out there. Of
Yep.
course, being a name comedian certainly helps, because then
Right.
there's already what do you
Well,
call
your
cachet?
establishment. Yeah. The pay per
Exactly.
view.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there's nothing better than that at that point. At that point in the game, I mean, really,
Yeah.
because
Well,
then
when you
because
do
the
what
audience always gets a fly. They never know what they're going to get.
so when you do an open mic, how much new material, roughly percentage wise, do you try to weave in?
Oh, I always try to start with something new if I can. If I haven't, went over a couple of times in
Yeah.
my head, and I try not to. But I have a friend that's suggesting just go up there and speak about whatever you want. Just make it funny. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, really? But that's because they're trying to teach me how to just be observant to whatever the last
Yeah.
comic said, go off that.
Right.
But I was like, my
Right.
memory ain't that sharp, girl. My
My
memory is
problem
not that
is
memory.
that
I can't remember what
yeah,
I
I
said.
can't think very fast. If you
No,
give
no,
me if you give me a subject and let me sit for about 10 minutes, I can come up with something.
exactly.
But I can't, to do to improvise on the spot.
Yeah, it's good. I mean,
No, I could
sometimes,
do silly things, but
yeah,
I couldn't come up with a well-crafted
yeah,
material.
yeah. It depends on because you get inspired by the people. So if I'm in a mic and I'm inspired by the comics, there's been times
Yeah.
where I was like, wow, I actually did that. I can't believe it. One time a comic was making fun of African American names, and he didn't know I was up next. Meanwhile, out of 30 comics, I'm the only woman. I'm the only girl. Luckily, I brought my daughter with
Uh-huh.
me, and
Yeah.
um, and it's in a little basement rooms in the city. Ha! And so he was doing this whole bit, and everyone's laughing about the names,
Yeah.
Shaniqua, whatever names they are. And so
Right.
I was so pissed that my daughter just tapped me. She said, "Don't be pissed. If you are, bring it on stage." And I was like, "Oh." So for once in my entire comedy time, this was when I was really new. I was able to
Yeah.
actually go up there and let out a barrage like a verbal Uzi, basically,
Yeah.
on but without being facetious. What's the word? Without being mean. It was just thank you. You just gave me a whole thing to work on. Like even when I went up, because my name is Tanya Cooper. I was like, oh, you
Mhm.
wasn't expecting all this afro, things like that, so because people look at me, it's like, your name is Tanya Cooper. So I get it all the time. So it was perfect for
Yep.
me. And it was perfect time for me to practice that one thing I had been thinking about. So sometimes depends on what it is, but depends. But I'm not there
Yeah.
yet.
That's it, because now you're being true to yourself, and you're working off your core, and that's, of course, for people who do short form improv, that's essential. You can't
Right.
pretend to be something. You have to pull it out of you, whatever it is that's giving you that motivation to speak at
Yep.
that moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. what do you call it? It's I love comedy for this very reasons. You just never know. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Forrest
Well,
Gump.
I go back to my first anecdote. Is it's just like professional athletes. It's being able to replicate it consistently that makes you great.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, because
That's
anybody can hit a baseball if you pitch to them 1,000 times,
right.
but try hitting it at least 400 out of those 1,000 times. That's tough to
Mm,
do.
mm,
But if
that's
you're a
good.
professional, you know what to do. You know how to approach the ball. You know how to swing it. The same way
Right.
with doing stand up. It takes, it's the old saw, time and practice.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Speaking
because
of
then
practice,
your synapses in your mind are already conditioned. You know all the little things you need to do to make it right. Which
right.
then go back to my Paula Poundstone example is she's been doing this for 35, 40 years. She
Um,
knows all the angles of doing crowd work. There's nothing anybody can say or do that's going to throw her off.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. See. She's a super pro. I call it super pro.
Yeah, exactly.
So how how do you stay up to date on current events or pop culture to make sure the impersonations remain relevant?
Well, it's almost like two distinct answers to that is that one thing to be up to date, but it doesn't translate, certainly for me, to be on stage. If anything, is it's a burden because unless you're doing observational humor, is it really doesn't matter. In fact, if
Right,
anything, the hardest part is I can reference stuff from 30, 40 years ago, and I
right,
realize is not everyone's going to get it. So you have to be careful on even cultural references.
right, right,
So no, I'm kind of in the soft, neutral middle. I don't do anything old fashioned or cutting edge.
right. Nothing too out
Yeah, let
there.
me think. I have to think. Is there anything that I would do that would? Nah,
Nah,
nah. Because
I
even there's been
can't.
times where I'll even think about something and I'll think, nah, because it's referencing something that's happening now, but in 6 months from now, it's old news, it just won't. It doesn't correlate.
Right.
Again, Ted isn't into doing. If Ted was going to do a political joke, it would be something from the 1840s.
Oh gosh, really?
But again, with
Well,
the idea that he thinks it's funny and it's current and relevant, and people are going to go, "What?"
what? Right. Right. And I get, but that's part of the joke, though. In
Well,
my
there was, recently Ted's been doing his dating bit. In fact, I think he did it at Dobbs Ferry when you were there. The
yeah.
dating joke that
Okay.
that involves
Okay.
um, airline food, um, smoking weed,
Oh
and the
God.
1905 Russo-Japanese War.
The Russo. That's
And the whole point is 1905 Russo-Japanese War. Who the hell would know anything about it anyway? But at least if people are getting the sense of it, is like that's just an absurd, dumb thing to put in. Great. If they're really trying to concentrate, going 1905 Russo-Japanese War. What's that?
funny.
Then it's not connecting.
Right.
So I
Right.
have to be. So Ted has to be careful. Sometimes,
Right.
the level of absurdity can only go so far
Right.
until it gets into the realm of obscurity, and then it's not funny. It's
Right.
obscure. You know that he's doing. You know that something obscure is being said, but it doesn't register.
Right.
So why bother?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
it takes it's a smart audience sometimes to understand or know how hard how hard it is to do impersonations. Because
And
I
like
used to do.
Steve Martin had a classic bit where he turned it on its head, where he uh, he he says to the audience, "I understand there's a large number of members here from the plumbing convention," and then he goes on to do a plumbing joke, and then the audience cracks up because it's so technically obscure, and then Steve goes, "Oh, maybe that was the previous night." And so and so
That sounds.
that's the tension release, is that he's making himself look foolish telling it
Mm,
a technical obscure joke.
mm,
So that's the way to get away with it if you can really, figure out a way to deliver it to an audience so that in effect, they're in on the joke and
Right.
they're laughing at it rather than laughing at the situation rather than the joke itself.
Right. Oh
Yeah.
wow. Well, I don't know. Have you ever created a character on stage? Just
No,
curious. No. Okay.
no,
Yeah,
because
because yours takes work.
no, I always I'm kind of the school of thought is I have to come prepared. Even if I rush into a open mic somewhere and I'm scrambling notes, I still
Right.
have a game plan in mind of what I want to do.
Right.
But no, I would never do anything cold. Mm,
Okay.
no.
I figure. Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, and
Um,
I know there's other people have different views on that. It just, and that depends on someone's talent and their outcome. Going
well,
again to the other extreme, someone who does crowd work, they
mhm,
have no clue who's out in the audience, but they know what to say and do to react to any given situation, whatever people respond to. If you're
right,
married, you're dating, where do you work, da da da.
right.
They've gone through the whole gamut. They know how to manage it.
Right, right, and that happens. Are there any is there anyone let me see, well, not that. Um Let me see. Well, you said there was no one that really inspired you, so I guess that scraps that
Well,
question.
no, not like one, like in like a total complete inspiration.
Mhm.
Back in the '70s, yeah, Steve Martin, and then Emo
Of course.
Phillips, Judy Tenuta.
I love
But I
Judy,
was
yeah.
just people that I would laugh at, to me, I understood that you could get away with doing absurdist things if
Mhm.
you know how to deliver it well. But you
Yes.
really have to put yourself right on the envelope. There's no
Mhm.
going back.
Nope.
I remember one time watching Emo Phillips on David Letterman show,
Mhm.
and he did one of his jokes that I've heard before, bits I should say,
Mhm.
and the audience is dead silent.
Oh, that's
And
the worst. Crickets.
I'm watching that going, yep, yeah, I know that feeling.
Crickets are the worst. Oh yeah, yeah.
Right, right, right. Well, again, is that's his what do you call his character, his thing,
Right.
and so you live and die with it.
Yes. Well, my
Yeah.
favorite will always be, well, there's a few, but Steve Martin's my favorite. But as far as comedy, but also Jerry Lewis, Benny Hill.
Okay.
I know he's very nasty, but I liked him.
Yeah.
I thought he
Yeah.
was hilarious. Only he can get away with the bits that he did. So go figure.
Yeah.
I love the Rat Pack. They were my favorite, but some people I like
We're going
impersonations
way back.
or slapstick most when it comes to comedy. Those are my two favorite things.
Yeah.
Definitely. I used to do 45 voices, but then I stopped. I didn't think it was going to be a thing. I didn't know it was a thing for comics to. That's a good thing to be able to impersonate. I had someone for every country. Trust me, and I
Oh,
had put
okay.
it on tape and played it for a friend, and she was like, "Oh my."
Yeah.
She's like, "That's you?" I was like, "All." I said, "Yeah, all of them." She's like, "No
Yeah.
way." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "But this girl sounded German or Italian or whatever, African, whatever it
Right.
is." Yeah, but I like to study people. So, and I'm a communications major at NYU. So
Oh, okay.
I love
Yeah.
hearing your tonation and your voice. I'm already in
Right.
tune. Yeah. So
Yeah.
then I'm
Yeah.
going to
There
pick
there
it
are
back
very
up.
there are very very few real impressionists around.
Yeah.
That on a professional level. I always think of Rich Little, but after that, to me, anyone who does impressions, of course, usually it's sketch comedy. It's
Okay.
not stand up. Yeah.
Right. Right. There's a difference.
I'm
You're
sure
right.
there's a dozen folks out there, out on the road that do certain things that I just don't know about. I'm really bad as far as anyone naming new current comedians.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's tell us about your two shows that you do. You don't
Oh,
was
the,
on your
the
bio.
geek, yeah, geek comedy,
Uh-huh.
Bronco
Yeah.
Bread.
Yes.
Um,
You scared me for a minute there. I was
they're
like,
similar. They're similar. The idea with the Bronco Brad Dang Tootin' Good Time show was Bronco Brad is like a throwback to the 1950s or 1960s children's afternoon half hour show. He's a
okay.
TV cowboy,
CJ
but
Cowboy.
he hardly does anything that's actually real. It's really absurdist, and uh, and then the idea was that Bronco Brad has to step off stage for some reason, and then other folks come on. So that's Oog Cinnabog, Ted the Impressionist. Let's see, is there anybody else? Mobot the robot.
Yes. Who gets the most
Mobot the
attention out of
robot
all?
who does Mobot the robot, or I changed him into Chadbot, the
Chatbot?
dating joke robot, and it's a robot that does dating jokes about dating other machines.
Oh gosh, that must be funny. That must
So
be
so that's where if I'm running solo, and then the geek comedy show is similar, but that's where it's an opportunity to invite other type of comedians or musicians that have that kind of offbeat act,
Mm-hmm.
and then put it together in an hour or 90 minutes,
Yes.
and then do it a variety show style where each performer is doing about 8 to 10 minutes, and we actually rotate so we can go up 2 times or even 3 times.
Wow.
So that way it keeps the audience laughing, and then by the time the second or third time show up, they know what kind of act it is.
Okay.
It's kind of pushing the boundaries because it breaks the rule that if you're going to try to do an act on stage, you go up, you deliver, you hit that crescendo, and you walk off to applause.
Right.
Here it's almost like a circus type of a theme where one act comes on, does their thing, goes off. The next act comes on, does their thing, goes off. Then the third guy comes up, does their thing, and then you rotate back again.
Yeah.
So it works. People enjoy themselves. So I'm happy to do it. I did one like that 2 weeks ago in New Haven, Connecticut.
Oh, nice.
So it was enjoyable.
Nice. Where can we find you? I know you have a website.
On a regular basis.
Well, that's true too. I want to also know, do you have anything coming up?
Well, I have my own YouTube channel.
Okay.
What is it? Ed Smyth
Let me see.
Kook Comedy on
What's
YouTube.
it called? Kook
Ed Smyth Kook Comedy.
Smyth.
Yeah. Kook Comedy.
K
Yep.
K or C?
Kook.
Oh, Kook Comedy. Oh, I put it in one word. Maybe that's not right.
Yeah.
Ed Smyth Kook Comedy.
Kook Comedy. Yeah.
Where am I?
And and then what I do is I post. I've got different playlists, and not only do I post things that I've recorded, but a different favorite things that I've collected over the years onto YouTube of different comedians, shorts, little funny bits, funny TV commercials.
Oh,
yeah,
I added E. That's wrong. No E, right? No E.
No E. Yep.
Right, no E. Got it. I'll get it right. I'll get it right. So, what any last advice you have for anybody who's thinking about being in person?
Oh, I would not give advice. No. Let's see. The challenge with stand-up comedy is that if look at it from a classic economics point of view, is that it's a low barrier, no barrier industry. Okay. Anybody can go up and do it, and there's no training, there's no license, there's no approvals that are needed. So you think of the comedy world, it's like a long, flat, very wide triangle or pyramid. So the usual nuggets apply about keeping it within 5, keep polishing material, throw out stuff you don't like.
Right.
The old writers, the cliche of kill your babies. You're familiar with that one, right?
Kill your babies.
In other words, is you write something, it comes from you and you love it. But the fact is that if you test it out and people aren't loving it, you got to get rid of it, even though you love it. That's what's meant by kill your babies. Yeah.
Right. I got it.
Don't fall in love with your material. Yeah. And it's like anything. Then it's just being truthful to the craft, that if you truly are enjoying yourself and people are enjoying what you're doing, then you're on the right track. If you're not enjoying it, or it's clear that if you take a pragmatic view and you're seeing people are not enjoying what you're doing, it may not be the thing to do.
Right. May not be it.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And there's no harm in that. Sometimes when I've seen like people post on their Facebook page that they're dropping out or they're gonna go on a lull for a while, that's perfectly fine.
Right. I see that all the time, and I'm like, but you said you were retiring, and then I see them next week doing a show. I'm like, Just say you're taking a break. Like what? It's like,
But sometimes you really do need to take a break because it clears your mind and
yeah,
gets you on a reset. You come
yeah,
back feeling rusty.
yeah,
If I go out if I do something without going a whole week without performing, I feel
mm,
like I'm shaking off the rust again, trying to get the timing back.
right.
So it's one of those things. It's just go back to the old saw. Just being a professional athlete is once you're on the off season
Hmm.
and you start gaining weight
Right.
and you're not being sharp anymore. You got to get back into preseason to
Yes.
get sharp again. So
Right.
it's the same
Yeah.
way doing stand up.
True.
Sometimes I've taken breaks in the past where I do a community theater, and that's nice because it's an opportunity to perform, but in an
Mhm.
entirely different way,
Yes.
and get a real appreciation for the craft, the theater craft of
Right.
performing to live audiences
Right.
without the necessity of trying to write and develop your own material. You're doing
Mm,
Eugene O'Neill or
right.
Shakespeare.
Right.
You're doing their material. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Well, thank you so much,
Oh
guys.
yeah. It's a pleasure.
Any new shows coming up? Anything coming up? I didn't ask that.
We got invited to do a show in near Kingston, New York, at the end of
Kingston.
this month.
Okay.
And then in September, back out again to the Finger Lakes Comedy Festival on
Fabulous.
September
Where's that
27th.
at? Where's that at? Finger.
Ithaca.
Ithaca. It's up somewhere. Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah, yeah. Ithaca is 3 hours from anywhere.
I
There's no
know.
easy
My
way to
daughter went
get
to college by there. I know. Trust me. Try getting lost when the movie Get Out came out. The movie Get Out
Yeah.
came out, and try being
Yep.
me getting lost on those back roads.
Oh yeah. Which
Yeah.
isn't bad.
Wait, and I go into the hotel.
New York is not Montana. If you get out on a
Oh
secondary
no.
road somewhere,
Oh no.
that the best rule of thumb is, as long as you have gas, you're fine. Because wherever you go, eventually you're going to get someplace where you
No.
well, then at least you'll figure out where you are.
Not this place. And I thought it was Ithaca. But it was like all trees and like it was like perfectly out of the movie Get Out. And I was like, oh my God. So then I see like it looks like a Holiday Inn type of hotel.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh my
yeah.
God, this is the place. I'll go in here. And when I walked in, it was really weird. When I tell you, right out of the scene of a scary movie. And I walked in, everyone's like, hello. And I'm like, hi. It was weird. It was weird. Anyway, so much for that. But
Yeah.
so much for traveling to Ithaca.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's very few places in upstate New York that would be scary.
Well, you're a man, remember, and your man doesn't look like me. So
Yeah, no,
so
that's
that's
fair
me.
enough. But
I think, yeah, you can go a lot more places than I. I mean, I'll go anywhere. I have no fear.
yeah,
But I'm saying, if
I
you,
understand it.
that's all.
Yeah, it's a different perspective. I can
Yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah. So I'm
Actually,
trying.
to me, the scariest place to drive around is some parts of downtown Buffalo.
Oh yeah,
It's
no,
like,
that's true
where
too.
am I? You gotta. I'm not.
We're
I'm
not north
certainly
the
not the place I'm
odds
supposed
anymore.
to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on
Yeah.
that one. I mean, the
Right.
farther up I
Right.
go,
Right.
the more I'd be like, I might not want to try this. Might not want to try this. So it's all good.
Yeah.
So far it's been good, and I've been all the way up to Canada. So far
Yep.
so good.
Yep.
Just don't want to test the waters too much, do I?
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being a guest
Oh yeah, it's
today.
a pleasure.
And
Good conversation.
yeah, you're welcome back anytime. And
Oh,
if you
okay,
want,
good.
yeah.
We can talk about more stuff about comedy.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Anytime. But we appreciate you.
Okay.
I can't believe the half
Yeah,
hour goes so
pleasure.
quick. And I apologize, guys. Just a little lag there of starting time. But thank you for watching. And
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Well, I figured you'd track me down, whatever was going on your side
yes,
of the yeah.
yes.
Car,
This
as you
side of
said,
the border.
car troubles or
Yes.
whatever. Yeah, that's fine.
Yes. But we made it. Hey, we made it.
Yeah,
So thank you. And
exactly.
guys, I just want
Okay,
to
thanks.
remind you, I just want to remind you guys to pick up some of these books of some comics. One is The Other Guide to the World Atlas Snubbed by
Okay.
comedian Tanya Pearl Lewis. Check that out.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Good
Okay.
ratings there. And then my friend Ed Paratori, The Coventry. If you like
Okay.
scary
Okay. Yeah.
books, check it out. And
Okay.
Kindred Spirits, check it out. So
Okay.
I
Okay.
always like to give people a plug when I can. There's so many things. I keep telling you guys, if you want me to plug something, you got to send it to me. Okay. All righty.
Hmm.
So thank you,
Okay,
Ed.
so go out there and get some reading done.
Yes. Get some reading done. Reading's very essential. We must learn to read real books, because if we don't, we'll have all
Right.
AI. Everything will be virtual.
Uh-huh.
Like, put on your
Yeah.
headset and you can read a book. It's like, no, that's not what we're doing. So let's get it
Right.
together, guys. But thank you
Indeed.
again. And
Okay, thank you.
hang out with me for 1 minute while I say goodbye to everybody. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you, Norma and Tony. I
Right.
see you out there. I couldn't see who's on YouTube, but thank you. And thank you to Ed's friends who's watching. So thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.